Ladies and gentlemen, the 1970s had a lot of great managers in Major League Baseball, but I think this guy was the most underrated, and I tell you why. He led three of his teams from obscurity back to prominence. He coached within the aspect of what players were available. He didn't look at just a few players on a roster. He looked at how the whole roster could come together to bring success. He started a decade after many years in the minor leagues coaching. He was pretty well the minor league manager of the year or top manager in the 1960s. But when he arrived in Major League Baseball, he turned the fortunes around for the White Sox, AL West contenders as soon as he arrived. With the Oakland A's, of course, to help rebuild that team after Finley decimated it after the 74 World Series. And, of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he led them to a World Series past the very tough Montreal Expos into the playoffs and a win against Baltimore. So today we're talking about one of the few managers that were ever traded, by the way. Chuck Tanner. Now, I first heard of Chuck Tanner when I started following the Chicago White Sox on the Saturday Major League Baseball game of the week, of all things, the French translation of the U.S. Major network shows. And boys, I was really impressed with the way he put everything together. Now, just a little background. We're just going to talk about his time in the 1970s. Now, in September 1970, he took over the last place White Sox after Don Gutteridge was fired and eventually managed the team for the final 16 games of the season. Now, before this, he managed 8 years in the Angels farm system, leading the Quad City Angels, the El Paso Sun Kings, the Seattle Angels, and Hawaiian Islanders as well. He had a cumulative record of .561 and .537, and he won Minor League Manager of the Year in 68 and 1970. Now, with the full season in 1971, he built up the team's fortunes. In 1971, he led the White Sox at a third-place record in the AL West at 79-83, which was a 23-game improvement over 1970. Now, Tanner, get this, moved the very, very durable Wilbur Wood out of the bullpen, and a knuckleball pitcher responded with a breakout year with 22 wins, an ERA of 1.91, and 210 strikeouts, and get this, 42 starts. And just remember why I'm mentioning this. We're going to get into it in a second. In 72, the White Sox went 87-67 and finished second in the division behind the A's. And Tanner won the Major League Manager of the Year award from the Sporting News and the AL Manager of the Year award from AP. Under Tanner's low-key style of handling ball players, moody first baseman Dick Allen, a great talent who has never been really recognized for it, he thrived, leading the league in homers with 37, RBIs in 113, and winning the MVP award. Now, Wood won 24 games and was named the AL Pitcher of the Year by the Sporting News. He started, get this, 49 games, still tied for second most starts of the season in AL history, and pitched 376 and a third innings, the most by an American League hurler since 1912. Now in Chicago, Tanner relied heavily on his top pitchers. In 72, two other White Sox hurlers started at least 40 games. Stan Bonson, a future Montreal Expo and a former New York Yankee Rookie of the Year, and Tom Bradley, who had 40. In 73, Wood, who had 48 starts, and Bonson 42, again combined for 90 starts. Wood finished with a 24-20 record and again led the majors with 359 and a third innings pitched. On May 28, 73, Tanner let Wood complete a game that had been suspended 2 days earlier against the Indians. He worked 5 innings, giving up only 1 earned run and picked up the win. Wood then pitched a 4th shutout to the regularly scheduled game. Now get this, in one of the few times where this occurred, on July 20th, 73, Tanner started Wood in both games of a doubleheader against the Yankees, and the pitcher, of course, was pinned with both losses. But what an effort. Now, under Tanner, with the Red Sox finished in 5th place in 73, 4th in 74, and 5th in 1975. Now, where this got very interesting, after the 75 campaign, the team was sold, and new owner Bill Veeck replaced Tanner with Paul Richards. Tanner then signed a 3-year contract with the A's, and the team was off to the races. In 76, the A's stole an AL record 341 bases in 464 attempts. 8 players had at least 20 steals, including pinch runners Matt Alexander and former Expo Larry Lintz, who combined for 51 steals, despite only 34 official plate appearances. The A's finished second in the AL West with a record of 87-74. Now, on November 5th, 76, Tanner was involved in that unusual trade. When Danny Murtaugh, who had managed the Pirates to 1,115 wins and 2 World Series titles, retired at the end of the season, the team wanted local boy Tanner to replace him. But Tanner was still under contract with the A's, and owner Charlie Finley wanted to be compensated if he was going to release his manager. The Pirates offered either all-star catcher Manny Sanguine or $100,000. Finley demanded both, and to Tanner's surprise, the Pirates agreed. It was one of the few times in baseball history that a player was traded for a manager. Now, we all know the Lou Piniella trade happened later on, but this was more of a positioning by Finley to pay off debts. Now, Tanner was delighted to be returning home. I can't wait for spring training. This is such a thrill. It's like a dream come true. Now, 77 and 78 were rough years because the Phillies finished ahead of them, and the Pirates were both second in the AL East that year. The team stole 260 bases, the most of the season by Pirates in 70 years. In 77, giving Tanner's teams a total of 601 steals in 76 and 77. Now, the great Dave Parker led the association with a .338 batting average as the Cobra worked with John Candelari's pitching, which led the team to great success. Candelaria ended up 20-5 with a 2.34 ERA. Now, in 78, the Pirates were trailing the Phillies by 11 and a half games down the stretch, but went 37-12 at the end of the season with 24 straight wins at home. But the Phillies clinched the division on the second last day of the season. Now that year, Parker was an NL's most valuable player with a .334 for again batting average, and with 30 homers, 117 RBIs. Stargell, who had played only 63 games the previous year because of a pinched nerve in his elbow, had 28 home runs and 97 RBIs and was named the NL Comeback Player of the Year. Now, 79, of course, was the World Series victory. They had 98 wins, outdistancing Montreal at the end of the season by 2 games. The Pirates adopted the Sister Sledge hit We Are Family as his team song, and their on-field success was a true team effort. No player had as many as 15 wins or 95 RBIs. Tanner was an innovator by using a platoon of relievers, often for an inning each in the same game, including the great Kent Tekulve, Enrique Romo, and Grant Jackson, who both all 3 pitched over 72 games. Now, the Pirates swept the best of 5 NL Championship Series in 3 games over the Reds, and winning in 7 games in a comeback against the Orioles. Now, Tanner said having Stargell winning the co-MVP was a big factor. Of course, Stargell went 12 for 30 in the World Series with 4 doubles and 3 home runs, and of course was also MVP of the playoffs, the final round. Now, Tanner stayed for 6 more years with winning records in 80, 82, and 83, and on May 29th, 83, he became the 35th manager to win 1,000 games in the majors. Now, what was kind of interesting about this, ladies and gentlemen, the 1970s for a lot of people, they felt like Billy Martin or Dick Williams was the best manager. But pound for pound, game for game, he took 3 franchises in Chicago, Oakland, and Pittsburgh and made it into their own. And Chuck Tanner, I wouldn't say he's the most well-liked manager of all time because we've had, obviously, Yogi Berra and different people. But Chuck Tanner, boys, as close you're going to get to a hockey coach because he got the best out of his players. I remember with Richie, like with Allen in Chicago, you're looking at Larry Lintz, who did nothing in Montreal, and Matt Alexander said, was published reports said these guys can't hit, so you got to run. But he brought back Stargell from injury, and he kept Dave Parker focused because everybody put pressure on Pittsburgh to outdistance the Phillies. And what was ironic about this, the Phillies won the World Series in 1980, but because the Pirates had chased and passed them in 79, that gave the Phillies more motivation to go towards the bigger picture, was the World Series. There was no surprise that the NL East was the best division in baseball for 5 years from 1977 to about 1982, because if the Expos couldn't win the division, they did, but went on a playoff. You look at the Phillies, the Pittsburgh very strong, St. Louis very strong. The NL East has always been very interesting because good people like Chuck Tanner were a part of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's some of the history of the great Chuck Tanner. If you like what we're doing here with our Major League Baseball podcast, let us know. Well, like, comment, and subscribe. And as a baseball player and fan, I can say thank you to Chuck Tanner for making baseball a better sport for us all. There's not too many people like Chuck Tanner. You'll probably never see his likes again. And to be traded, I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, because they either want to get rid of you or they have to get rid of you. You know, not too often you're just traded to help pay someone's bills, where 5 years before they were just floating in the money. But Charlie Finley, well, he was a crazy dude to trade Chuck Tanner. Can you imagine he would have stayed, but then maybe had the eyes on Billy Martin. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you're down 2 strikes at the plate and 2 outs, don't give up, because as we like to say, there's always a possibility that in baseball, if you got life, you got hope. Thanks for listening. Bye.